wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. My name is Steve, coming to you from beautiful Howard, Ohio, and I'm joined by...
Dan, Queens, New York City.
This is the podcast where we apply ancient philosophy to modern life. And this week, Dan and I are going to focus on one of Seneca's more verbose letters, but a letter that's got a lot of important information in it. Dan, do you want to kick off this introduction?
Sure, I'm going to start out with just a really brief quote that touches on the heart of the matter. As leaves cannot flourish by their own efforts, but need a branch to which they may cling, and from which they may draw sap, so your precepts, when taken alone, wither away. They must be grafted upon the doctrine of a school of philosophy. Seneca, Letter 95. As Steve said, this letter is significantly longer than most of the letters of Seneca. In fact, letters 94 and 95 are the longest of Seneca's letters. Consequently, rather than read the whole thing, we will pull out some of the passages from letter 95 that we think are the most crucial and are key to understanding the concepts that Seneca was trying to communicate. And before we get started, it may be useful to define a couple terms, since we rarely use the words precept and doctrine in day-to-day conversation. Precepts are practical rules. The dictionary defines precepts as a command or principle intended especially as a general rule of action. Examples could be, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Whereas doctrine is tenets and dogma, and the dictionary defines doctrine as a principle or position or the body of principles in a branch of knowledge or a system of belief. And one way to look at it is that precepts are lists of do's and don'ts. Precepts tell you what to do. On the other hand, doctrine is a systematic framework that tells you the why.
And so if you have a broad understanding of your philosophy and you understand the why, you don't necessarily need to memorize a bunch of little rules to remember how to conduct yourself in everyday life.
Right. Do we need doctrine? Are precepts sufficient? And Seneca writes that there are people who do argue that all you need is a list of precepts.
And I think we see that a lot on social media with some Stoic groups. It's just quote after quote, right? Memorable, some great quotes. But here's a quote from Marcus. Here's a quote from Seneca. What is in your power? What is not in your power? Whatever little things you can memorize, and these are great. But Seneca's going to argue that you can have a precept that you've memorized, but you can still hold false opinions. You can still apply things incorrectly if you don't have a broader context of a philosophy that that these precepts apply to. So you need a broader system, more I don't know if I want to say a detailed map of how reality works, but kind of an understanding of how reality works. Then these little quotes can be quite handy.
He argues that knowing what you should do or shouldn't do is not sufficient. It's more important to understand why you should do something or not do something.
I think it's in the Enchiridion. Epictetus says something about people doing wrong while or people will tell you why something's right while still doing wrong. Essentially, it's like the goal here is to actually put it into action, live it out as your philosophy, not just memorize some sentences that make you sound philosophical online.
If you know what to do, but you don't know the why, it'll be difficult to have a strong commitment to that rule. It'd be easy to abandon that rule when something tempts you or frightens you.
And we can never memorize enough rules. How many decisions does a human being have to make a day, right? Like you're never going to memorize enough precepts to fit every possible situation. You have to have some of that practical wisdom.
Right. It's better to have a framework, a doctrine
Yeah.
that will guide you in every situation as opposed to an exhaustive list that you couldn't possibly memorize.
Exactly.
You owe this duty to your father. this to your children, this to your friends, this to your guests. But greed will always hold us back, no matter how we try. A man may know that he should fight for his country, but fear will dissuade him. A man may know that he should sweat forth his last drop of energy on behalf of his friends, but luxury will forbid. A man may know that keeping a mistress is the worst kind of insult to his wife, but lust will drive him in the opposite direction. It will therefore be of no avail to give precepts unless you first remove the conditions that are likely to stand in the way of precepts. The soul, in order to deal with the precepts which we offer, must first be set free. Suppose that a man is acting as he should, he cannot keep it up continuously or consistently, since he will not know the reason for so acting. Some of his conduct will result rightly because of luck or practice, but there will be in his hand no rule by which he may regulate his acts, and which he may trust to tell him whether that which he has done is right. One who is good through mere chance will not give promise of retaining such a character forever. Furthermore, precepts will perhaps help you to do what should be done, but they will not help you to do it in the proper way. And if they do not help you to this end, they do not conduct you to virtue. I grant you that, if warned, a man will do what he should, but that is not enough, since the credit lies not in the actual deed, but in the way it is done. Seneca, Letter 95.
I'm going to pick up from there, that last statement you said, and add a little more. I'm going to use paraphrases here rather than exact quotes, but he goes on in his letter to say the rust must be removed from our souls. Recklessness and laziness must be cleaned away. Greed prevents us from fulfilling our duties to family and friends. Fear keeps us from doing what is right, and luxury makes us unwilling to work hard. Every vice interferes with virtue. Precepts are of little use until these obstacles have been removed. Possessing moral rules while still clinging to vice is like having swords lying at your feet in battle while your hands are too full to pick them up. An action may be honorable or shameful, depending on the motive behind it. Sitting beside a dying friend may be an act of love or an attempt to secure an inheritance. The outward act is the same, but the intention determines its moral worth.
Right, either you're a good friend or you're a vulture.
Right. Someone walking by may not be able to tell the difference, but you know the difference. Just having these rules memorized is not sufficient. We have to make ourselves better. We have to clean away the vices that get in the way of us living well. Greed, as he says, laziness, the desire for luxury. And as I'm sure you may want to add in a moment, Dan, but he really romanticizes an earlier, simpler time where people ate rougher foods, had fewer problems because of the lack of luxury and
Mo money, mo problems.
right, exactly. But I don't know that Seneca's fantasy past was an actual situation, but it's kind of like the sage. It's a target that they have, like we want to make Rome great again, like it used to be. In this case, not by becoming more grand, but by simplifying things.
No one will do his duty as he ought, unless he has some principle to which he may refer his conduct. We must set before our eyes the goal of the supreme good, towards which we may strive, and to which all our acts and words may have reference. Just as sailors must guide their course according to a certain star. Life without ideals is erratic. As soon as an ideal is to be set up, doctrines begin to be necessary. I am sure you will admit that there is nothing more shameful than uncertain and wavering conduct. Seneca, Letter 95.
One idea that the Stoics put out there is that a sage, or someone who's made as much progress as you can make in philosophy, are kind of constant. They behave the same way in public as in private, and they make wise decisions in any given situation. And so they're not rapidly changing their mind or shifting positions or running in fear from a challenging situation. And so I think that's part of what he's getting at there, is that You have that strong foundation of philosophy, and you will live consistently, I think is the way Zeno put it. I also thought it was interesting something Seneca said about worshiping the gods here. He says, to worship the gods, one must first believe in them, acknowledge their majesty and goodness, and recognize them as the rulers of the universe and guardians of humanity, even if they do not concern themselves with every individual. Now, the part I like the most here then is, well, how does a Stoic worship these gods? The surest way to gain their favor is to become a good person. Whoever imitates the divine nature worships the gods sufficiently. I just thought that was interesting. I know there was stories of how Zeno thought there should be no temples because God is everywhere, and this idea in that if you try to live via reason, and the idea that the gods or God is like reason concentrated, if you try to live that way, that is a sufficient way to worship said divinity.
Right. And this kind of goes back to consistency as well, because that requires you to imitate the divine reason all the time
Yeah, and that's
with vigilance using prosoche.
exactly. So being in the moment and applying that philosophy constantly, not just memorizing rules to figure out how to deal with things as they pop up, but consistent living using philosophy and these concepts that we discuss here on the show or that you may hear on other shows or through your own reading, applying them from dawn till dusk. Overall, this letter is not about following rules, but becoming the kind of person who doesn't need rules. You don't need a big list of rules because you kind of know overall how to live according to nature, how to live well.
Yeah, precepts are fine, but they are not enough. You need to
Right.
have the doctrine underneath to teach you the system because, as we said, you can't memorize an exhaustive list that will cover every situation and that in the heat of the moment that you can think up, memorize that, like draw up that memory of that one rule that applies to this situation, and that would be disastrous in the long term.
And so we have to know what our goals are. Like Seneca says, no wind is favorable to the man who does not know to what port he is bound. Or in the words of George Harrison, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You won't be consistent if you don't know what your goals are. What kind of character are you trying to build? And then some things to ask yourself that kind of gets to the root of the topics in this letter, something you could think about or a discussion question around the dinner table. Are we trying to become better people by collecting advice or by changing our values? Because I find myself doing this. Like I'll listen to podcasts and it's just some podcasts are just one interview with another with authors, and every author has ideas of how to live well. And it feels like I'm just collecting advice rather than just getting a couple of ideas and then trying to actually change my values in my life. And at the same time, you can ask yourself, well, could someone live consistently and do the right thing consistently if they don't understand why it is right? Kind of like you said earlier, Dan, why is this the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's hard to be committed to a rule that you don't understand the why.
Yeah. So what makes this right? Then if you remember why something's right, you don't need to remember the rule anymore. It just makes sense, right? Trying to live once again consistently and not be swayed by everything around us. We live in this whirlwind of opinions, ideas, and people trying to get us to do things and buy things and vote a certain way. It's like, which of these desires are desires that come from nature? What of our desires come from advertising campaigns or comparison with your sister, your brother, or the guy down the street?
This is where prosoche comes in, like constant rigid attention to your sense impressions and the judgments that you're forming about those sense impressions so you can think to yourself, is this consistent with my values or am I just being pulled along by my worse instincts?
Right. Yeah, we're all being drugged by the cart of fate, but you don't want to also have your arm chained to the cart of fate while your feet are being pulled by the cart of Walmart or Amazon or whatever in the opposite direction. You're not going to be able to flourish in a situation where you're being driven in several directions and can never really reach the destination they're pulling you to. If you want to dig into this letter in more detail, check it out. It's, of course, online for free in several places, but also there are audio versions on YouTube and elsewhere. I highly recommend not just listening to us summarize things, but dig into this stuff, chew on it yourself. You have to wrestle with this internally yourself a little bit as well in order to figure out how this philosophy is best lived by you. So, Dan, what should they do if they want to let us know what they think, or if they want to hear something in particular on the show?
They can write us an email at sundaystoic@gmail.com.
And please do, and make sure to check out the show. But remember, none of this matters if you don't take a little bit of it and apply it to your life. Just 1% change a day, a little bit of improvement will have massive results
In the long term.
in the long term. But in order for that to happen, you have to apply it, you have to be mindful about it, and you have to seize the day.
Carpe diem.